Welcome to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where it's all about helping you complete your financial journey to retirement. Discover time-tested strategies and get unconventional insights into wealth building and retirement that actually work. Break away from the herd and go for the retirement you dream of. And now, here's your host, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
All right, back on Personal Pension Radio. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate the support. This has been a fantastic ride. This is episode number 129. 129. Now, those of you who pay attention, you might notice some gaps in the podcast where there are some numbers missing. So those are podcasts that either I decided to take down and readjust or re-record them. But this is the 129th episode, and I am the income engineer. You are in the right place for Personal Pension Radio, broadcasting from my studio woodshop / podcasting recording studio here in Southern California. Now, my mission in this show is, as you hear in the intro, to be unconventional, to challenge that mainstream approach to the retirement dream. My mission is to actually deliver the Wall Street retirement dream that was promised, but it just hasn't been a reality. It has not been a reality. The retirement crisis in America is more and more real to me every time I sit down to record this show or study this. It is a retirement crisis. And my mission is to deliver that retirement dream that Wall Street and the marketing machine has promised for all these years and just sadly has not been delivering. And I was educated by that Wall Street financial advisory machine. I was never taught to really pay attention. I was fed exactly the information that Wall Street and the financial industry wanted me to learn, and send me out into the world to sell this and sell that, and really don't ask what's behind the curtain. That's basically the idea that as a green, young financial advisor, I was basically taught what the companies that I worked with wanted me to know, and get out there and just, that's what you should be telling folks. And that's just the reality. It's not anything necessarily sinister, not at all. If you remember the question, those of you who've been on the show with me for a while, I've asked this question before. Does Wall Street or the financial advisory industry have any real incentive to teach people how to take maximum money out of the system? Of course not. They don't have any financial incentive to teach people how to really take money out of the Wall Street machine or the financial advisory community. That's just good business. There's no financial reason for them to say, hey, let's spend a ton of money teaching people how to take the $20 trillion that we have on management. Let's teach them how to take it all out, how to spend maximum income in retirement, right? So that's what I realized. Oh, gosh, I forget how long ago. I mean, I realized as a financial advisor that I had never really been taught the complete story of retirement planning, the complete picture. I was actually sharing this with a Vistage group recently, that the journey to retirement or changing in a career path, let's say it's not retirement, let's say it's a transition to something else, the journey is two parts. It is that accumulation phase, that as you grow up the mountain, you're climbing that proverbial mountain. But when you begin to descend the mountain, that is the distribution phase. And the economics of accumulation are completely different than the economics of distribution. You've got to have a financial plan, a distribution plan that covers you for both sides of the journey. Because you don't get to just head to the top of the mountain and then say, yeah, I win. You've actually got to make it back down safely. And in the retirement sense of the word, that is income that lasts as long as you do, so that you don't die broke, right? So that you just don't die, run out of money or have to cut your lifestyle so drastically. And I was educated by that Wall Street machine. They never actually taught me specifically the rules or the challenges of retirement income. So when I learned it years ago and said, whoa, wait a minute, I don't want to tell somebody when they've worked all these years and I'm going to build these relationships with people and then they're going to get into this retirement conversation with me and I'm going to suggest that, for example, the standard answer from Wall Street has, the last 30, 35 years, if you have $4 million, right, $4 million, and you've just been one of the very lucky few people who have saved and saved and saved, and you built up $4 million, that the standard answer from a Wall Street advisor would be that you should not take out more than 4%. Wait a minute. You're telling me I have $4 million, but I can only take out $160,000 a year? Well, yes. Well, why? Why is that? That doesn't make any sense at all. Well, when you start taking income, we don't know how long you're going to live. We don't know how the investments are going to do year over year. So you got to be really careful with how much you take out. What if you only had $1 million? You're telling me I'm going to only take out $40,000 a year out of my $1 million? Yes, and you got to be really cautious because if you live a long time, 4% might be too much. When you start listening to that conversation, and I remember years ago I started hearing that conversation saying, well, I don't want to have that conversation with my clients. That's a really disappointing conversation. We talk about average rates of return and this investment is great and this and that is great. And then we're going to say, well, now let's talk about income planning and, maybe you shouldn't take out more than 4%. That is not an exciting conversation. That is why I became the income engineer. My passion for this idea of engineering and designing retirement income plans that people do not have to accept that Monte Carlo simulation 4% rule conversation with their financial advisor. You don't have to. You do actually have to have a strategy in place to help you avoid it, but it doesn't have to be your reality. So I am just all about fighting that conventional wisdom about retirement planning. Optimizing retirement income doesn't happen with a particular product. There is no magic bullet, right? Now, quick disclosure. I am not an attorney. I am not a CPA. I am a certified financial planning professional. But as qualified as I think I might be, please don't act on anything you hear on this show as if you feel like you've gotten personal advice, because you have not. And especially, please do not act on the advice that you hear from financial entertainers or radio or podcast hosts for that matter. Meet with a qualified financial planner, somebody that actually has the licensing and education and the background and continuing education to work on your specific situation. Meet with them, talk with them, ask questions before you start acting on advice. Get to know that financial advisor. Let them get to know you. Share those details. Now, let's jump in. The first segment is called Watch Your Step. Last week, I actually talked about a bad review that I had received. I'd received a bad review on iTunes. Thank you again to those who have left. The majority of all the reviews are, I'm glad to say, are all very positive and very nice, and I get nice emails, and I just really appreciate that. But I think there's a lot to talk about when you get a negative review. I like to pay attention to those now and then. Make sure there's not something that I'm missing, and I focused in on this idea that the media and the dominant message from financial entertainers and Wall Street, right, is just that. It is the dominant message, right? You have to remember that Wall Street spends billions and billions of dollars a year, billions of dollars, $17+ billion a year marketing. So they are the dominant message. Remember, Wall Street has no financial incentive to teach me, a financial advisor, to teach you how to really take lots of money out of their system. So they dominate the message. So when I focus on the messaging that I'm putting out there, it is very contrary to the prominent message. I am trying to get your attention. It's like I'm the one flagman standing in the middle of the freeway, just trying to get your attention in a sea of automobiles flying by, right? That's the challenge. This week, I want to make sure that you understand that relationships matter. Relationships matter. So those who challenge the status quo often get scoffed at by people who are part of the status quo. That is just the norm, right? So I received this, but there was another review that I received that this person said that I was very negative towards traditional or academic financial planning strategies. Well, yes, I am. I am very negative towards traditional academic financial planning strategies because they have not worked. They have been in place for 30 plus years, 35 years of traditional academic financial planning strategies have put us in the retirement income crisis that we're in now today. That's the problem. My sales pitch, right, if you will, is number one, come back and listen to this show as frequently as you like. Build that relationship with me by getting to know me and my personality as a financial planner and who I am personally. This podcast serves as a way for people to get to know me. It's not specifically a sales pitch for any one thing. It's not like a radio show on the weekend that basically disguises the entire show to sell a certain kind of life insurance, or the entire show that I listened to, I heard some of it last week, was all about selling annuities, right? Now, I believe in life insurance and annuities for sure, but this show is not a sales pitch for some kind of a product necessarily. The sales pitch is number one, get to know me on this through the podcast. But if there's a sales pitch in here at all, it's get your own answers. Request, for example, I do retirement income analysis for people who want to know more about the path that they are on currently. That if you're not sure what path you're on, what your retirement income path looks like, my sales pitch is get your own answers. Contact me. Go to email me at Kraig@kraigstrom.com. Don't forget, it's Kraig with a K. Email me and request a retirement income analysis. You can take that to your own financial advisor and ask them, hey, is this what I'm on track for? Right? Request your own. Many other sources, it is said in another review, many other sources offering real academically based advice dealing with asset allocation, tax optimization, living frugally, and withdrawal strategies. Many other sources, I'm sorry, this wasn't written well. I would imagine they meant to say, there are many other sources offering academically based advice dealing with asset allocation, tax optimization, living frugally, and withdrawal strategies. Well, that's a mouthful right there, right? And by the way, I just have to say, I mean, I'm not going to be overly negative about this idea but it sounds like these are coming from financial advisors. That these kind of comments, they seem very financial advisory to me. And they're negative, right? So hey, I appreciate the love. Somebody took the time to sit down and actually write a negative review. But let's read this. Let me read this again and kind of break it down because things pop out at me here, right, that I want to talk about. There are many other sources offering real academically based advice. Well, I just mentioned that earlier. Academically based advice dealing with retirement planning has, in my estimation, been a tremendous failure. It really has. So much of the basic economic advice has put us in the situation that we're in right now. Things like asset allocation. asset allocation is such a buzzword. Tax optimization, that's a buzzword for 401ks and Roth IRAs. 401ks and Roth IRAs. Can you just get beaten over the head with another conversation about tax optimization with 401ks and Roth IRAs, right? Tied together with living frugally. Now, I am a huge living frugally fan. However, I want to retire on maximum income. I don't want to retire on living frugally. I do want to I see myself in retirement someday, living very well and still living really efficiently and carefully with how I buy and spend my money and such, right? But this idea of tax optimization and living frugally, well, if you live frugally, you probably don't really need a lot of tax optimization. And withdrawal strategies. Let's talk about that for a second. Withdrawal strategies from the typical, as it said here, as this person said, academically based advice. Withdrawal strategies are, let's draw from our Roth IRA assets first, and then we'll draw from our 401k or IRA assets first, and then we'll draw from these assets first. Well, withdrawal strategies for me is, how am I going to get maximum income from all my different sources? And yes, tax optimization is a critical thing, but in the academic and the Wall Street teaching, you hear max out your 401k, max it out. So there are many, many sources offering real academically based advice. This show, me personally, a great deal of the fundamentals of my financial education as a certified financial planner professional are academically based. The difference with me is that I don't accept everything that academia and the Wall Street machine has fed me. I have rejected a good deal of the lessons and the messaging that I've been taught to put out there to my clients, to the world. Does that does that get me scoffed at? Absolutely. It definitely does. As I said before, those who challenge the status quo, those who try and go against the current, oftentimes will be the subject of ridicule for those who are in the stream going along with the flow. And that's the challenge that I face. I do appreciate the feedback and the comments, but I recognize and I kind of expect it because I have had, especially this year, because I put out a challenge to financial advisors earlier this year. I've put it out on this podcast. I've put it out personally, one-on-one. I've challenged financial advisors to come to me with their academically based, Wall Street based approach to retirement income and tell me why they're right. Tell me why. And I won't say that I've lost friends, but I haven't made any new friends as I continue to ask questions. One kind of a dramatic example, I asked somebody to give me, and they told me that the best thing since forever was this particular product strategy for retirement income. And as soon as they shared it with me, I started asking questions. More questions. I asked another question. And the next thing you know, they stopped returning emails. They just stopped. They couldn't either answer my questions or they didn't want to, right? So that's how I approach this podcast and how I approach things as it relates to retirement income in general is I want to challenge things. I want to challenge that academic approach. I want to ask questions. Now, I might come back and say, yep, okay, I believe in that academically based approach to asset allocation or tax optimization. But I'm going to challenge it first. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to dig in. And that's what I hope you get from this show and from me is that desire to challenge the norm, right? I want you to challenge things. So enough on that. I'm ranting on this review here. I need to get to segment 2, which is a question that came in. Last week I had a question about indexed universal life again. I went on another rant about indexed universal life because I had a client, a listener actually wrote in saying that he and his wife had purchased several of these indexed universal life. That was on episode number 128, if you want to go back and listen to that. So this week, here's the question. Kraig, I have heard you use the term product allocation versus asset allocation. Can you describe what that means? Oh, let's see. That's why I chose this, because it was a really good lead-in when I was talking about this in the first segment, this kind of a negative flavored review. This academically based, advice dealing with that asset allocation. Remember the buzzword, asset allocation. Well, I will often suggest product allocation. What is your financial product allocation rather than always speak of asset allocation? So that's what they're referring to. And this kind of goes back to the golf bag analogy. Right, Kent? And if you think of the game of golf, you've got multiple different clubs in the bag, and I forget how many golf clubs are regulation as far as number of clubs, but if you're just a hacker out there golfing like I do, you can keep whatever number of golf clubs in your bag, plus a whole lot of extra golf balls, right? But let's talk about the golf bag analogy. Could you play an entire round of golf with only a putter? Right? The putter to get the ball in the hole at the final shot, right? Yes, you could play an entire round of golf with a putter, but you really wouldn't want to. The game would take forever, right? It wouldn't be enjoyable at all. A long game as it is already would be, maybe 2 days long now, right? It's better to have your golf bag filled with clubs that are designed for a specific purpose, right? A specific shot, a chipping wedge for close shots, a driver for long distance shots. You might have a hybrid club that's really good for hitting in this particular distance or that distance, a sand wedge when you get in the sand traps like I do. So you have multiple clubs for specific purposes. And the financial world is full of examples of products being sold as a one-size-fits-all, okay? So I'll hear real estate people, they speak of real estate as if it is the solution to everything, the Swiss Army knife to everything. And in fact, I believe that real estate is a great accumulation asset, but it is not always the most efficient and safest income asset. It's a great way to grow wealth, but when it comes time to maximum income from a value perspective, real estate may not be the most efficient and safest way to draw income later in your life at a time when you need it to be maximum and safe, right? So real estate, it's not a one-size-fits-all. How about annuities? So annuities, we hear that all the time. Compared to real estate, they may not be, and I would suggest they probably aren't, a better accumulation asset. However, they are often a much better income vehicle. Annuities as a product, not the best accumulation vehicle, but a really good income vehicle. So you look at those two clubs in your financial golf bag, they have two very specific specialties. You would not want to pull out an annuity per se and use that as an accumulation asset. It doesn't really have at all the same usefulness as real estate in that respect. But when the time comes for you to need some income on a consistent, secure basis, you don't want to pull out the least, appropriate club. You want to pull out the club out of your financial golf bag that's the best at that particular shot. And in this case, let's say annuities, They're just better at income. All right, great. Now, what about investments and savings that you plan on leaving behind as a gift to charity or to family? I heard someone recently was asking me this, that they want to leave money behind, but they want to skip their kids because their kids are financially irresponsible, and they really want to leave a nice gift behind to their grandchildren. Okay, so let's talk about the clubs in your bag that can leave a legacy behind. So investments could be good, right? Because there's some tax benefits to leaving gifts to family members and on a tax-efficient ways. You have savings. You could have a variety of things like annuities and CDs and things that you could leave behind to family. But if your intent is to leave behind such a legacy, you really want to look in that golf bag of yours, that financial golf bag, and you want to pull out the best club for leaving a legacy is often life insurance. Life insurance is usually the most efficient way to turn a comparatively small amount of money that you put into a life insurance policy into a much greater gift. That's the exponential increase of life insurance. So investments and savings and real estate left behind, they can leave that's a good legacy. It really is. However, if your true intent is to leave behind a maximum legacy, I would suggest you've got to get into that financial golf bag and pull out the club that is most appropriate for that particular shot. And in this case, life insurance would be, in most cases, the most efficient way to turn that small amount into a much greater gift. Other clubs in your golf bag could even be long-term care insurance, right? That you can have long-term care money. I've met folks who have money set aside, and I ask them, what are you setting this money aside for? And they say, long-term care. You know, if I ever have a stroke or something like that, I have long-term care. And they have $100,000 set aside in a savings account or in a CD or something. And I ask this question that, well, if you could have $200,000 for long-term care so that you can make sure that you have plenty of long-term care insurance, or at least twice as much as you have today, would that be interesting to you? Oh, sure, I would love that, but all I have is my $100,000. I don't have $200,000. Well, there are long-term care insurance clubs, like in your financial golf bag, that if you put your $100,000, depending on a lot of different circumstances, there's all these different qualifications, but just give you the example for these folks. You put $100,000 into a long-term care insurance plan with an insurance company that completely guarantees it return of your money if you want it back, but you put it $100,000 in, and the insurance company says, hey, if you have a stroke, we'll pay out $200,000 in long-term care benefits for you. Well, wait a minute. Didn't we just say we only had $100,000? Exactly. The most appropriate financial club in the golf bag for long-term care planning is probably not an investment account with $100,000 in it, or a CD with $100, or an annuity with $100. It's probably a long-term care insurance plan that will magnify the $100,000 through the magic of insurance and give you a $200,000 long-term care protection, right? That's the appropriate club for long-term care planning. You've got your car insurance and home insurance, right? Those are all financial clubs in that golf bag. So when I say product allocation, making sure that you have the right products for the right job. There is no one-size-fits-all, and that goes back to income planning. Right? The solution to income planning is not a bigger investment account or more real estate. It's not. It's the product allocation, all of the clubs in your financial golf bag, annuities, life insurance, real estate, investment accounts, CDs, long-term care planning, car insurance, etc. All of those things doing the appropriate job that they are really best at, right? That's what I mean by product allocation. Just being careful that you don't end up with a one-size-fits-all approach. For example, We talked about this, on the last show, where somebody had been pitched this life insurance, and the whole idea was, it's gonna give you this retirement income. It's gonna be an asset that's gonna grow. Oh, and it's got a death benefit, and it's gonna do all of these things. Well, I'm a big fan of cash value life insurance, but it is not all things. It is not. It's just like it's the same conversation with so many different financial things. There is not a one size fits all financial club in the financial golf bag. You need product allocations that are appropriate so that you can pull out the club that you need for that particular piece, and they all work together in the right order. Now, let's jump in. I want to share one last thing here today. It's a little, I don't know the word. It's a little philosophical, a little thoughtful. I've always remembered this story. I forget when it was shared with me it's a long time ago now. But it's the idea of the calf path. I also call it the cow path because calf, people think, you talking about my legs? No, it's the calf, like a baby cow. I call it the cow path, as I mentioned last week. The Calf Path is a poem by Sam Walter Foss. I'm not going to go and read the whole poem. Don't worry about that. But it is this fantastic, really great visual that helps people understand the idea that we are so prone, as Sam Foss says, we are so prone that men are prone to go it blind along the calf paths of the mind. Listen to that. For men are prone to go it blind along the calf paths of the mind. Do you feel like your life is leading you instead of you leading your life? Right? This is what I want you to think about. Then in the financial world in general, what I am trying to do is to pull people off this Wall Street calf path. And just so the record, the idea of this calf path is that 1,000 years ago, a young cow on his way back to the farm where they get food headed off on a particular path, and another cow followed that same path. And this path meanders and wanders and roams in different directions. There's no straight line about it. You have to picture this path going, over the hills and dales and such, as a young calf would do. There's no beeline directly from point A to B. There's this wandering path to get back to a particular destination. It's not the fastest way. It's not the easiest way. What happens, though, and what happened in the poem and the story is that path was forged by one young calf and then was followed by another animal and another and another. And eventually that same path, meandering all over the place, that same path just became the normal route for so many different people, creatures, human beings, etc., that it just became the norm. And people just blindly, and animals blindly follow that path. Right? Watch your children. Watch the people around you and notice the calf paths that people are on, right? I have habits and things that I do. You'll notice some people only shop at certain stores. Some people go to work in the same way every day. Some people sit at the same spot at the table every time in a meeting, right? And then they'll say things like, that's just the way it's been done, right? That's the way I've always done it. What are your calf paths? What are your personal just habits that you're just stuck in that rut and you stay on that path regardless of outside influences? Now, I share this calf path story, and I would encourage you to look it up and read the poem. It's called The Calf Path by Sam Walter Foss. Excellent poem, and it really is something that motivated me years ago to be cognizant of my own paths and be willing to try something different, to be willing to get off that path. It doesn't mean that I might not come back to a particular path that I'm on, but I have to be, and this is me, I personally said to myself, I have to be willing to step off that calf path and look around and just take a look. And Wall Street, and this is why I share this, because I believe that Wall Street's marketing machine has carefully, slowly slipped a loose-fitting harness around our connective necks for nearly 40 years, and the calf path was made. That they have very carefully begun to lead people down this particular path years and years ago, and then eventually they don't need that loose-fitting harness anymore because everybody just started getting in line behind the next calf that's on that path, right? And the path was made. And today, we are bombarded with messages that keep people on the path. We're told to mistrust anyone who suggests that the path is not entirely correct. I'm speaking, of course, of myself, right? We're told that those people must have a hidden agenda for wanting you to come off the path. Yes, I do have an agenda, but it is not hidden at all. I want to help steer you off the path so that you have an opportunity to decide for yourself if you like the destination. If you like the journey and the destination of the path you're on, great. Get back on that path, right? But I am encouraging you to stop the path you're on today. Email me at Kraig@kraigstrom.com. Ask for a retirement income analysis. Find out what path you're currently on target for. Find out what your destination looks like on your current path. And then you decide for yourself, do you want to get back on that path and head, with everybody else? How do you get off the calf path if you're not willing to try something new, right? That's the key. So here are just a few suggestions. These are things that inspire me to get off my particular paths that I'm stuck on. Number one, you do have to be unafraid to try something new. You have to be willing to do something. And even if you're frozen in fear when it comes to trying something new or being different, start with something small. Do little things to start, right? Listening to this podcast could be your starting point to break away from the herd, from that path, right? Don't be afraid to try something new. Remember, one of my favorite quotes by Eric Hoffer, the learners will inherit the earth. Learners will inherit the earth, while the learned will be beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists, right? If you are not always learning and not willing to learn, you will be passed by. The world will pass you by. Do little things to start. Here's a fun little quirky thing. I'm not going to go into a bunch of details here, but there's a fun little quirky thing that if you want to learn to do something different, that you don't have to be open and big and bold and public with it. Try this. Open the door all day long with your non-dominant hand. So if you're a right-handed person, every door you open today, open it with your left hand. Close it with your left hand. Every cabinet you open it with your non-dominant hand. Try something different. It's such a little thing, but really, take that step. I actually heard that, read it somewhere. I can't remember when. It's so many years ago that I've lost track of when it was. So I actually will consciously try and do things with my left hand as opposed to my right hand. Even tools, working with tools in my wood shop, I will consciously try and use my non-dominant hand. It breaks a pattern of just routine. So little things like that. Be brave and don't dismiss the financial planner who is alerting you to the Wall Street calf path that you are currently walking on. That's my call to action for you today. Don't just say, that person over there trying to get me off this path must be crazy. Maybe I've got a path over here that you'd want to learn about. Contact me for your retirement income analysis and find out. And now, enough about calf paths and poetry. Let's finish up with my special offer. I've had a bunch of people actually take advantage of this, and I want you to have it. I've still been able to continue to offer this. Thank you for your patience, those of you who have to wait for me to get that set up for you. But I'm offering eMoney. eMoney is a cash flow planning and estate planning, data vault, investment planning tool that is usually only available if you work with a financial planner at my level, per se. Let's just say that. At my level, this is generally the only place that you get access to eMoney. And you don't have to be a client of mine to access this tool. It is awesome. So, if you would like to try eMoney, cash flow planning, estate planning, advanced planning, goal-based planning, there's a document vault for all your important documents, and it'll also bring in all of your values, your checking, your savings accounts, your investment accounts, so you can see your net worth all in one place. If you want to try that, send me an email, Kraig@kraigstrom.com, and in the subject line, just say eMoney, and I'll set you up on that, and it's fantastic. Don't miss that. Now, remember, the future belongs to those who take action. Really excited about you just being motivated to get off your own calf path and take some action. Don't be afraid to ask questions and challenge the norm. I'll talk to you again real soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast. If you missed anything during the show, that's okay. We took the notes for you. Check the show notes for links, offers, and a full transcript. And don't forget to head over to personalpensionradio.com and download your free retirement income report. While you are there, we would appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening.
Now for the disclosure. Information presented is for educational purposes only and is not intended for solicitation, sale or purchase of any security or financial product. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and your tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed here. The term personal pension refers to a marketing name designed to educate future retirees and retirees about the economic principles behind creating their own pension-like income. The term personal pension is not intended to be confused with a defined benefit pension plan offered by an employer or by a government entity.